I've lived alone in my little house for years now. I'm pretty set in my ways as an introverted single guy. My routine looks the same day to day: work, gym, dinner at home, TV or video games, then bed. I like the predictability and peace of it all. But one night a few weeks ago, something very out of the ordinary happened. I had just finished eating dinner and was wiping down the kitchen counter when I heard it, my name being whispered very clearly, directly into my left ear. "Brian." The voice was quiet and breathy, impossible to identify as male or female. I spun around, heart racing, expecting to see someone standing beside me, but no one was there. My eyes scanned the room. All the doors were still locked and chained. The curtains were closed. I was totally alone. After a few deep breaths, I convinced myself it was just my imagination. I hadn't gotten much sleep the night before, so I chalked it up to fatigue messing with my head. I laughed off how spooked I had let myself get. But later that week, I heard the creeping whisper again, this time as I walked upstairs to bed. I was mid-yawn, eyes half closed when that voice drifted into my ear once more. "Brian." My whole body jolted with fright. I flipped the light on, frantically checking around me. The stairwell was empty as always. Now I knew something bizarre was going on. My house didn't have any speakers or security system someone could be using to prank me. Was I losing my mind? Or even scarier, was some intruder hiding in my house, able to perfectly whisper my name before vanishing without a trace? Both options seemed pretty terrifying. I started locking my bedroom door at night, leaving all the lights on around the house when I was home alone. But it kept happening randomly, always when I least expected it. I'd hear a faint "Brian" from unseen lips while cooking, showering, even sitting on the couch, anytime, anywhere in my house. No matter how thoroughly I searched, though, I never found any evidence of break-ins or hiding places where someone could be tucked away. The police sweep came up empty too. Their suggestion of carbon monoxide poisoning was similarly ruled out after I had detectors installed throughout the house. I began dreading being home, constantly glancing over my shoulder and listening for the slightest odd noise. When the whispers came, I shut my eyes tight, trying to will them away. But they always lingered for a few long, horrifying seconds first. I even tried sleeping with earplugs, only to wake up to the faint sound of my name muffled inches from my face. Eventually, I resorted to staying with friends or at motels just for some sense of safety from the haunting whispers. In the beginning, I could at least play it off as a plumbing issue to explain my sudden anxiety about being home. But the longer it went on, the weirder my behavior seemed, even to me. I stopped talking about the creepy whispers to anyone, not the police, friends, or even my therapist. I knew how insane it sounded, and the stress of not being believed was too much. I did open up anonymously in an online forum, relieved to find a few others had experienced the same thing, but none had any better luck stopping the strange occurrences either. Almost 2 months had passed of living out of motels and couches. I was going broke and exhausted. As much as that house now frightened me, I decided to stop running and face this thing head on. I wasn't going to let some bodiless voice scare me out of my own home any longer. The first few nights back, I left all the lights blazing. TV and music on too, so there were no silent moments for it to catch me off guard. But eventually, I had to accept that I couldn't avoid turning off all the noise. I forced myself to go about normal routines, even leaving the lights off again. Sure enough, within a week, I was in the kitchen making dinner when the whisper drifted into my ear, closer and more drawn out than ever before. "Brian." I froze, hands shaking slightly. But for the first time, instead of running away in a panic, I summoned my courage and spoke back to the darkness. "Who are you? What do you want from me?" I was met with silence at first, then suddenly footsteps slowly walked up behind me. The creaking floorboards confirmed I wasn't just hearing things this time. I sensed a presence hovering over my shoulder. My stomach twisted with fear, but I turned to face whatever was there. To my shock, no one was behind me after all. No signs of anything. I called out again, demanding the intruder show themselves. The disembodied voice returned, now near the basement door, whispering, "Brian." It was clearly toying with me, luring me to some unknown fate down in that cellar. Against my better judgment, I felt compelled to follow the voice. I needed to know what entity was haunting me this way. Gripping a baseball bat, I cautiously made my way downstairs. The dark space was cluttered with boxes and junk, lots of places for someone to hide. "Come out and face me, damn it," I yelled. A childlike giggle answered first. It seemed to come from all directions surrounding me. Finally, a dim light appeared, and with it, a shadowy figure across the basement. I stepped towards it, bat raised and ready to strike. As I got closer, the apparition mirrored my movements, floating away each time I neared. When I was almost close enough to make out its face, the figure vanished. "Brian," the eerie voice sang out once more right behind me. I spun around with my weapon, accidentally smashing it into the hanging light bulb. Sparks flew as glass rained down, plunging the basement back into total darkness. That high-pitched giggle rang out again from the black void. Heavy breaths echoed around me from shifting directions. I stumbled blindly towards the stairs, groping my way along the cold cement walls. Just as I grabbed the railing, bony fingers clasped my arm from the shadows. I jerked violently away, losing my balance and tumbling backward. A searing pain exploded in my head. Dazed, I looked up to see a dark form crawling down the steps towards me. As my vision went spotty, the last thing I heard was that faint voice whisper, "Sweet dreams, Brian." When I came to, sunlight was streaming through the basement windows. I was slumped on the floor with a throbbing lump on my skull. No one else was down there. I made my way upstairs, frantically checking closets, under beds, anywhere someone could be hiding. But as usual, I was totally alone. I realized then that I had two choices. I could flee and let this presence, real or imagined, drive me away from my home for good. Or I could accept it as part of my reality now, some phantom that only I seemed to perceive. As crazy as it sounded, I knew deep down the second option was the only way forward. In the weeks since, I've gotten used to my disembodied stalker. It comes and goes without warning, whispering my name, giggling at me, watching unseen. I still flinch each time, but I refuse to let it control me. I talk to it now, telling it to leave me be, but I don't hold out hope it ever will. I don't know what it is or why it's latched itself onto me. I still struggle with feeling safe alone in my own house, but I force myself to stay put, rather than running scared. I tell myself that even if this presence remains, I can cope with it. I have to believe I'll adjust to this unwelcome roommate someday, despite how unnerving it feels. I do have one new habit, though. I keep headphones on me constantly now, music playing anytime I'm home just in case. It seems to muffle the sounds of whispers or giggles when they happen. It may not make them go away entirely, but I'll take whatever safety net I can get. Maybe someday I'll get used to this invasion of my home and senses. For now, though, I know as soon as these headphones come off, that voice could drift to me again from any dark corner, ready to make sure I never feel completely at peace or alone. But I won't go down without a fight. This is my house too, and if it wants to stay, the ghostly intruder will just have to learn to get along with me. I hope at least one of us is up for the challenge. The rain was coming down crazy hard that night. Thunder was booming like explosions, and lightning kept flashing, lighting up my bedroom for split seconds at a time. I was just lying there in bed reading comics when I heard this weird tapping sound against my window. At first, I figured it was just some tree branches blowing in the wind and hitting the glass. But the taps kept coming, over and over, almost in a pattern. Tap, 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 tap. A pause. Then again, tap, 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 tap. I tried to ignore it, but the tapping kept going. It was starting to freak me out. I turned up my music to drown it out, but I could still hear it faintly through my headphones. Suddenly lightning flashed and lit up the night sky. That's when I saw it. A dark silhouette right outside my window. It was there for just a split second before the sky went dark again. I froze. No way, that was a tree branch. It looked like a person pressed up against the glass. I turned on my bedside lamp, but when I went to the window, there was nothing there, just rain pelting against the pane. My hands were shaking as I latched the window shut. I told myself I must have imagined it, just a trick of the light or something. I tried going back to reading, but I couldn't concentrate. The tapping started up again, louder than before. It seemed to be moving across the glass, around to the side of the window. Tap, 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 tap. Then again on the other pane. Tap, 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 tap. Over and over, moving all around the frame. That's when the lightning flashed again and I saw it. The dark human-like shape pressed against the glass, faceless in the shadows. Right there at the far end of the window, tapping. I gasped and stumbled back against the wall, shrieking involuntarily. The tapping stopped. When I turned the light back on, nothing was there, just the rain running down the glass. This couldn't be happening. It had to be my imagination. Some kind of crazy waking nightmare or something. Still, I didn't want to be alone in my room. I ran out to the living room where my dad was watching TV. He could tell I was freaked out, but didn't really believe me when I told him what I saw. He checked my window and even went outside in the rain to look around, but there was nothing there. He told me it was probably just lightning playing tricks on my eyes, but I knew what I saw. After what felt like forever, my dad finally fell asleep on the couch. I tried to stay awake, but I was so tired from fear and stress that eventually I passed out too. A deafening crack of thunder jolted me awake suddenly. I was alone. My dad must have gone to bed. The TV was still on, flashing blue light around the dark living room. Rain lashed at the windows. Then I heard it. Tap, 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 tap. The tapping right behind me. I whipped my head around, but the window was empty. Nothing there but rain. Tap, 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 tap. Again on the next window over. It was moving around the room, getting louder. My heart seized in my chest. I leaped up from the couch, but my legs felt like jelly, almost collapsing under me. The tap, tap, tapping was darting all around the living room now, windows rattling under the force. I ran to the front door to get out of there. Just as I grabbed the knob, the whole house went dark. The power had gone out. I couldn't see a thing, but I could still hear the incessant tapping drawing closer, surrounding me. In the darkness, I imagined 100 shadowy figures closing in. With all my strength, I turned the knob and pulled open the front door. Suddenly, lightning lit up the yard for a split second. Long enough for me to see the silhouette standing right in front of me, hand raised ready to tap on the glass door. A scream caught in my throat. Then it was dark again. I pushed open the storm door and a blast of wind and rain hit me like a shockwave. I stumbled outside onto the front steps, hyperventilating. I tumbled down the steps into the muddy yard, half crawling in blind terror towards the road. I turned to look back at the house one last time as lightning flashed. For a moment, the black outline of the figure was visible by the front picture window, blending into the shadows. Then thunder shook the ground, and I took off running down the darkened street, rain mixing with tears on my face. The tapping was distant now, but I couldn't tell if it was just in my head. I didn't look back again until I reached the 24-hour diner on the highway, drenched and delirious. I never spent another night in that house. We moved the next week after I told my parents everything. I still wonder sometimes who or what was out there tapping on the windows that night. A part of me doesn't want to know.